Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Let's get into it. Because I counted every step you took away from me. That's what I said. That's the exact sentence that came out of my mouth when she asked me why I was so quiet over dinner. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even blink. I just stared at her as the words left my lips like they'd been waiting in my throat for months. She froze, mid-fork, mid-breath, mid-smile. That smile she used to save for me. And in that moment, I realized she didn't know I knew. She didn't know I had followed her the night before. That I had stood across the street in the cold, watching her get into someone else's car. That I had watched the taillights disappear into the night while I clutched the flowers I stupidly thought she'd appreciate. She didn't know I had recorded the phone call she made 2 days ago. That I heard her whisper, "I hate pretending around him. It's exhausting." She didn't know I had found the earring, the one that wasn't hers, wedged in the passenger seat of her car. Or the hotel keycard she left in her coat pocket like I wouldn't find it when I did the laundry. But I did. I knew everything. And instead of throwing a glass or yelling or storming out like in those dramatic stories you read online, I sat there, quiet, until she noticed. And when she finally asked what was wrong, like she hadn't dismantled our life piece by piece with her own bare hands, I just looked at her, really looked at her, and I said what I needed to say. Because I counted every step you took away from me. The candle flickered. The music didn't skip. The world outside kept spinning, like it didn't care that mine was caving in. And still, she stared at me, like she couldn't decide whether to lie again or laugh it off. But this time, I wasn't going to let her do either. The silence after my words was longer than any argument we'd ever had. Dahlia just sat there, blinking like her brain had stalled. The kind of silence that clings to your skin, like the room itself was holding its breath. She slowly lowered her fork back onto the plate, but she didn't touch her wine. That alone told me everything. She only skipped wine when she was afraid she'd say something she couldn't take back. Her lips parted slightly. I saw the moment she prepared to fake confusion, to pull her favorite trick. "What are you talking about?" But I didn't give her the space to do it. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a folded piece of hotel stationery, and slid it across the table toward her. She hesitated, but curiosity won. She unfolded it and found the printout of her text exchange with Wes. I had copied just 3 lines, just 3, enough to destroy 12 years. Her face drained so fast it looked like someone had unplugged her soul. Her fingers trembled, and I watched, not with satisfaction, but with this deep, aching emptiness. Like I was watching a painting of my life peel off the wall and turn to dust right in front of me. She looked up, finally speaking. "Trent, this isn't—" "No," I said quietly, cutting her off. "Please, don't make it worse." That broke her. She blinked hard, then looked away, out the window, like the streetlights might offer her a way out. But there wasn't one. Not anymore. I leaned in just slightly, keeping my voice calm, measured, like I'd rehearsed it in my head 100 times. Because I had. "You see, I wasn't always quiet, Dahlia. You just stopped listening." She looked back at me then, eyes glassy. "It didn't mean anything," she said, and I swear I nearly laughed. That phrase, so casually cruel, so painfully rehearsed. The kind of line you say to someone when you've already decided they're disposable. I shook my head and dropped my napkin beside the untouched pasta. "It meant something to me," I said. "Every night I waited for you to come home. Every morning, you smiled like everything was fine. Every 'I love you' you said, with someone else's scent on your skin." That was the moment her lip trembled. She knew I'd noticed. She knew I wasn't just guessing. I stood up. The waiter glanced at me from across the room. I gave him a polite nod and pulled out my wallet. I left 2 20s on the table. More than enough. And then I said the final thing I needed to say. "Tell Wes I said congratulations. He's not getting the woman I married. She's been gone for a long time." Then I walked out into the cold, not looking back even once. When I got home, everything looked the same. And that was the cruelest part. Her keys still hung on the little ceramic hook we bought in Asheville. Her coat was still folded over the back of the chair. There was still a half-empty bottle of oat milk in the fridge that only she drank. It's strange how betrayal doesn't change the furniture. It just makes it quieter. I sat on the edge of the couch for a while, jacket still on, fingers interlocked like I was in some kind of courtroom waiting to be sentenced. I stared at the dark television screen and saw my own reflection, hollow-eyed, hunched, barely recognizable, Like I was watching a ghost of myself waiting for something to finally collapse. It's not that I wanted to cry. I'd already done that. In the garage, in the car, in the shower, with the water turned up so high it almost burned. Now I was just still. Like I was floating outside my own body. That's when I noticed it. The scent. The faint trail of a cologne that didn't belong to me. It was there, woven into the cushions, clinging to the air near the hallway like an echo. Not strong, not obvious, but unmistakable. Someone else had been here, and not long ago. I stood up slowly and walked into the bedroom. The sheets were made, but not our way. She always tucked the corners tight and fluffed the pillows. These were different, sloppy, rushed, someone trying to pretend nothing happened. But the worst part? The window was open. It had rained earlier that afternoon. There were small muddy streaks on the sill and 2 faint footprints leading toward the alley-facing fire escape. Someone had left in a hurry. I didn't move. I just stood there and stared at the window. The breeze carried in the smell of wet pavement and cigarette smoke, and for a second, I imagined what it must have looked like. Him crawling out of my house like a thief, buttoning his shirt with shaking hands, running from a life he didn't earn. I didn't say a word. I didn't break anything. I just walked over, closed the window, and locked it. And then I sat down on the bed and waited. For her. She walked through the door like nothing had shattered, the same key in the lock, the same gentle creak of the hinges, the same casual drop of her bag by the coat rack. She even hummed a little, some stupid melody from her commute playlist. Like she hadn't just left behind the scent of another man in our home. I didn't say anything. I stayed sitting on the edge of the bed, hands clasped, staring at the floor like it might give me answers. I heard her heels click across the living room, stop, then shuffle slightly. That was her noticing the shift in the air, the silence. My car in the driveway. "Trent!" she called out. Her voice was light, sing-songy. It hit my spine like a hammer. I didn't answer. She appeared in the doorway a moment later. The second she saw me, her whole face changed. That plastic confidence cracked. She didn't even try to smile, just stood there like a kid who walked in on the principal, holding a copy of her forged signature. "Hey," she said cautiously, "you're home early." Still, I didn't speak. She looked down at the floor, then at me, then back toward the hallway behind her, like she wasn't sure if she should come closer or run. I watched her eyes flick to the closed window. Her breath caught for half a second. That's when I knew she saw it. The locked latch. The sealed-in truth. What are you doing just sitting there?" she asked. Her voice cracked. I finally looked up. Not with rage, not with heartbreak, just stillness. The kind that comes after the storm has already done its damage. "I wanted to see if you'd lie to my face one more time," I said. My voice didn't shake. It was too tired to. She stepped into the room, but slower now, carefully, like she thought the floor might give way under her feet. "Trent, Don't," I interrupted. "I know he was here. I know you didn't even wait until I left town this time. And I know what window he climbed out of her mouth opened, but nothing came out. No denial, no explanation, just silence, thick and ugly and overdue. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even that she brought someone else into our home. It was how comfortable she looked doing it, like this had already become normal to her. She didn't even flinch. No tears, no apology. Not even the usual fake outrage, the kind cheaters love to weaponize when they realize the jig is up. She just stared at me like she was calculating which version of the truth I already knew. Like, if she guessed correctly, maybe she could control the explosion. "I never meant for it to be like this," she said finally, her voice lower, almost rehearsed. "You never meant for me to find out," I corrected. She blinked slowly, and for the first time, I saw it. Not guilt, but exhaustion. She looked tired. Of pretending, maybe. Or of hiding. Or maybe just of me. I stood up from the bed, the springs creaking beneath me like the house itself was groaning under the weight of this moment. I walked past her into the hallway. She followed, hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she should defend herself or let me speak. "How long?" I asked without turning. "Trent, how?" "Long?" Her breath hitched. 6 months. 6 months. That meant my birthday, our anniversary, That meant the weekend I got food poisoning, and she spent the night at Lauren's place, texting me sweet emojis while I lay shaking in bed. I turned to face her. "Was he here that night?" I asked. She looked down. That was enough. I nodded, not because I understood, but because I had to keep myself from collapsing. I walked into the kitchen, pulled a glass from the cabinet, filled it halfway, and just stood there holding it like it might steady me. It didn't. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, like she was freezing, but refused to ask for a blanket. "I didn't do it to hurt you," she said. I let out a short, bitter laugh. "You didn't do it for me at all." She took a step closer. "You've been distant for a long time. Cold, like you were already halfway gone. And you just needed someone warmer, huh?" I snapped, louder than I meant to. She didn't answer, and there it was again. That quiet, nauseating indifference. As if the damage had already been priced into the equation. She said his name like I should know him, as if I'd nod and say, "Oh, that Wes." Sure, carry on wrecking my life. I remember exactly how she said it. Casual, almost too casual, like she was trying to normalize the absurd. It wasn't random, Trent. It was Wes. I stared at her for a second, running the name through my head like it was supposed to land on something. But I was blank. I didn't know a Wes, so I asked, "Who the hell is Wes?" And then she did the one thing I truly wasn't prepared for. She tilted her head slightly, like it physically pained her to say it, and then murmured, "He works with you." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Marketing team," she whispered. "He said you two talked sometimes after meetings." I swear to God, I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. My ears started ringing, and for a moment I actually had to grip the edge of the counter to steady myself. My own coworker. Someone I'd passed in the hallway. Someone I'd probably nodded at like an idiot while he was sleeping with my wife behind my back. It wasn't just infidelity anymore. It was infiltration. I couldn't stop replaying every stupid moment at work, every fake smile, every, "How's it going, man?" Every time I shared a conference table with someone who knew things about my wife that I didn't. The humiliation washed over me in slow waves, like each memory needed to cut me on its own timeline. "You brought him here," I said flatly. "Into our house. Into my space." Her silence confirmed everything. I turned away, gripping the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. "Do people at work know?" "No," she answered too quickly. "No, of course not." But I didn't believe her. And worse, I realized something far more painful. She didn't even try to deny it anymore. Not because she felt bad, but because the truth was finally easier than the lies. And maybe that was the most honest part of her I'd seen in months. The next morning, I woke up before dawn, even though I hadn't really slept. My body ached from the weight of everything I didn't say the night before. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the hardwood floor while she slept behind me. Or at least pretended to. I didn't care either way. I didn't speak to her. I didn't leave a note. I just got dressed, grabbed my badge and laptop, and drove to the office like it was any other Monday. But nothing about it felt normal. The walls felt thinner, the voices louder, the smiles tighter. I walked through the hallway toward my desk and saw Wes standing near the coffee machine, stirring sugar into his cup like his world wasn't about to catch fire. I slowed down, and for a second, I think he saw something in my eyes because he flinched. Barely, but enough. His eyes darted away like a coward, pretending to check his phone. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed something more than just a scene in the break room. I needed control, because I'd already lost too much of it at home. I walked into my manager's office and asked for a meeting, said I needed to talk about a personnel issue. She raised an eyebrow, but gave me 10 minutes later that morning. I didn't waste it. I told her I had concerns about professionalism, about blurred boundaries between coworkers. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. Her expression changed halfway through my sentence. And that's when it hit me. She already knew. Everyone knew. Everyone but me. That was the punch that landed hardest. I'd been walking around like a loyal idiot, making jokes in meetings, offering to cover shifts, while the people around me whispered behind my back. About my wife, about Wes, about the cruel joke I didn't know I was living. She nodded slowly when I finished speaking. Said HR would look into it, but her voice had that tone. The one people use when they feel sorry for you, but don't want to say it out loud. When I walked back to my desk, Wes was gone. Good. Because I wasn't going to explode in public. I wasn't going to beg him for an explanation. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I had something else in mind. I didn't go home that night. I drove past our house, no, her house, and kept going until the city lights faded in the rearview mirror. I didn't have a plan. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't even have a toothbrush. But for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something that had almost disappeared inside me. Clarity. I ended up at a small coastal motel 3 hours away, the kind with flickering neon signs and rooms that smell like salt water and old carpet. I paid cash. I sat on the edge of the bed, stared at the ceiling, and just exhaled. No shouting, no accusations, no one lying to my face. Just me. Silence and the weight I was finally setting down. She tried calling the next morning. 10 missed calls, 3 texts. The last one just said, "Can we please talk?" Number. We couldn't. Because what was left to say? I didn't need an apology from someone who never felt sorry. I didn't need closure from the person who created the damage. What I needed was to stop looking for peace in the same place that had destroyed it. I left my wedding ring on the bedside table at that motel, not in anger, but as a marker, a quiet moment that said, this is where it ends, and where I begin again. Fast forward 6 weeks, and I'm in a different apartment, in a different part of the city. It's small, quiet, and mine. I started writing again, something I hadn't done in years. I take long walks in the evening. I make dinner for one. And sometimes, I even smile without feeling like it's a lie. I'm not healed, not completely, but I'm healing, and that's enough. Because sometimes, surviving the betrayal isn't the victory. Choosing yourself is. Thanks for watching. If you've ever experienced a moment where the truth quietly changed everything, tell us about it in the comments. Maybe it was something someone said, something you overheard, or something you finally admitted to yourself. We'd love to hear your stories. And don't forget, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Subscribe for more stories that cut deep and heal slow.